What kind of a challenge does Utah have on their hands when the Iowa State Cyclones come to town? We're also talking about the significance of Utah's senior day, such a historic group of players that will be graduating for Utah. And women's basketball news, Lynn Roberts is joining the LA Sparks, a late night shocker. We're breaking it all down on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen and view of the day. We are available on all platforms wherever you get your podcasts, and we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, also on YouTube. Love interacting with you on the YouTube comments as well as on social media. We can follow our show at Locked On Utes on X. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. You can visit FanDuel.com today to get started. My name is JT Wistersill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. Excited to be joined by Ryan McDonald of the Deseret News, and we'll talk about the big, just crazy, wild story that is Lynn Roberts in just the start of the season, leaving to take the LA Sparks job soon. Got to talk about senior day as well. But first, Ryan, we are in the midst of football season winding down. So I did want to start with news that, just talking about this Iowa State team and what kind of challenge Utah has on their hands when the Cyclones come on in. So look, Cyclones, 22nd ranked team in the country, 8-2, third in the Big 12, in the thick of the title race. They won their first 7 games in a row, but they've lost 2 of their last 3. And they actually looked impressive against Cincinnati last week. That was 34-17 win. That's a solid Cincinnati team, had been up and down all year. But even before that, they had those 2 losses, the one to Kansas, who's just the giant slayer as of late. Kansas has beaten Iowa State, Big 12 contender, championship contender. Then they beat BYU, and they get Colorado this week. So it's crazy what Kansas can do in a year where everyone picked them to a lot of people picked them to win the conference. They're just derailing everyone else's season. Also had that 1-point loss to Tech the week before, and even a team like UCF, they only beat them by 3. So this is a good Iowa State team. They still have a path to the Big 12 championship game too. We'll break down the specifics in their moment, but look, the spread is already more than a touchdown in favor of the Cyclones. It's been a disappointing season for the Utah. Still been a really successful season for the Cyclones. This is going to be a tough one on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean,
is that your collectively all Utah fans when they look at it like, oh yeah, they're the ranked team and we're not? Oh.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And that breath felt good. That was well timed. That was well timed to need to take a deep breath. Yeah, I mean, look, Iowa State's really good. Yeah, they've slipped up past couple, slipped up a couple weeks there, and they had a couple of close, lucky wins, at least one. I think they had multiple lucky wins. So yeah, maybe they're not the great team that they were looking like for a while. That they were looking for a minute like
they were top 10 or at least borderline top 10.
Exactly. Yeah. I think they were 9. Yeah, I think they were as high as 9. Don't quote me on that, but as you're watching this thing, that yeah,
to be quoted.
But yeah, they're a really good team, and Utah is a really not good team. So
tell us how you really feel.
So
you're not wrong.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. The stats back up what you're saying, right? But we can go into the reasons that Utah is underwhelmed and disappointed, and even the offense, right? Like coming off a lot of positive moments and drives from Wilson, but still an overall disappointing effort. The defense did a lot of good things, but still gave up a lot of big plays. They're coming off their worst performance of the season. And this is not the team you want to be facing when you're coming off a performance like that, right? When you look at Iowa State, they have the best defense in the Big 12 based on points per game allowed. That was Utah last week. Then Utah saw Colorado. So they're holding teams to 18 points per game. And in terms of yards allowed, actually, this is something that should give Utah fans some hope. Utah is 22nd, allowing 316 yards per game, while Iowa State is giving up their 41st and 337 yards given up per game. So they are allowing more yards, but they're holding tough in the red zone. That usually means, which should scare every Utah fan with how our red zone offense has looked as of late. like we said, started the year really good and cooled off a little as of late, but that means there's no margin for error. So you can look at it two ways. One, a positive of like, oh, well, they're not as good. But then that's also like, oh, but we're not going to catch them sleeping. Like they know that they can't lose another game if they want it in the Big 12 title race. So that's the tough part. I think Matt Campbell is a really good coach. He's done a lot of really good things with the Cyclones, led them to a lot of success, had some down years, but he's done a good job too. Rocco Beck's their quarterback, thrown for 2,628 yards on the year, 17 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Also can scramble, not the most mobile guy, but, has 5 rushing touchdowns, over 200 yards on the year. Both of their top 2 backs are averaging 5 yards per carry. So the offensive line is doing a good job up front. He's been sacked less than 15 times on the year too. So a much better job protecting Beck than we saw the bust last week with Shador. They got their top 2 receivers. Jalen Knowles, 935 receiving yards, and Jaden Higgins has 860 receiving yards. So this is a really good offense. They had moments where they've underwhelmed a little bit, and Beck is still only a sophomore, so he's been a little up and down, but they can score. There's guys and playmakers all over the field. This is going to be a really good matchup. Their offense, which is, as we look at offensive averages and numbers too, I thought I wrote that down, but they're averaging they're 7th. There we go. 7th in points per game. They're 31st. They're over 31 they're at 31 in the conference. So they can put up points too. It's a good matchup. Utah defense versus their offense, Ryan.
Yeah. 2 things. Number one, I love Rocco Becht. He led some of those comebacks. There was at least the one. Who was it against? I can't remember.
They have a big one against Iowa early in the season too. They've had a couple of gutsy wins this year and a couple of, close calls too, right? They blew out Baylor, but a narrow win. Maybe it was the UCF one, could be what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
So I see Rocco Becht as a gamer. I think he's a gamer type. I'm not quite ready to call him Cam Rising type level, but
yeah,
I think he's got some of that situation like Cam, where I think he's a gamer. So I think he's really good. As far as Utah is concerned, though, you were talking about, Iowa State's maybe in kind of a no-lose situation or a, can't-lose situation. I know this season has been as frustrating as it gets for Utah, but they're still in bowl contention unless they lose one of their last 2. So I know that bowls have meant a lot to Kyle Whittingham over the years, and I know that things haven't gone as they wanted to this season, but I think that's something still worth playing for. And until you get that 7th loss, I think getting a bowl game berth is something worth playing for. So Utah has that on the. I know that that's not what we're used to talking about with Utah is just scraping by to get a bowl game, but it is what it is, and that's something that they still have left to fight for. So. In that respect, I think they could make it a game.
Yes, I think they could too. And let's talk about one thing real quick before we do get into the whole Lynn Roberts thing. Let's talk about the defense of the Cyclones. Big disparity. Their secondary, fantastic. They are allowing 153 passing yards, which is the 3rd best mark in the nation. So their pass defense, lights out. Malik Verdon, Jeremiah Cooper, Miles Purchase combined for 15 passes defended on the year. You also, and that's not even mentioning Jontez Williams has 4 interceptions. Their secondary, really good. Pass defense, really good. Front 7, in terms of especially stopping the run, not as stout at all. They're allowing 184 yards on the ground. That's right, a massive disparity in terms of what they're allowing through the air on the ground. And so their pass defense, 3rd best mark in the nation in terms of yards allowed per game. When you do that for passing yards, 105th. I can't remember seeing a drop off like that recently. So, and just last week, right? They have 287 yards on the ground to Cincinnati. So the formula for Utah is simple. Run the ball a lot. And I'm not even just talking about like with Isaac Wilson handing it off. I would honestly use Mekhi Bernard as a wildcat back. Like frequently, Mike Mitchell, I would run it as much as you want. And yes, give a little bit of Carson Ryan, give maybe a loner end zone shot. And obviously Dorian Singer when you get those opportunities. But man, if you're Utah, you have got to run the ball in this one. So I'm excited to see Utah's matchup with Iowa State. It's going to be tough. Cyclones are good, but Utah is going to have a chance. And that's all we can ask last home game. And what's going to make the last home game special? It's senior day. And this is a great group of seniors. Want to talk about their impact. And we still got to hit on Lynn Roberts is going to be a coach of the LA Sparks. Wild. How did this all come about and come to be? Breaking it all down momentarily. But first, today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at Mint Mobile. I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with a purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them on it. Turns out it really is easy. It really is easy to get that wireless plan for $15 a month. The longest and hardest part of the process was waiting on hold to break up with my old provider. So that's why you have to get started with Mint Mobile today. And you can go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. And there you'll see that right now, 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. All plans come with high-speed data, unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. Find out how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer, you get a new 3-month premium wireless plan for $15 a month. Go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. That's mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month. mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower, above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes and fees and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile today for all of the details. All right, Ryan, we are going to talk about this special group of Utah seniors, but I came out of a movie and then all of a sudden I saw my phone was blowing up on social media and I'm like, what's going on? And Lynn Roberts. And if you would have asked me coming out of the movie theater, hey, JT, what Utah news do you think just happened? You would have taken me hours to get to the women's basketball coach is leaving for a WNBA job in the middle of a season. Ryan, this is wild. We'll talk about the news itself in a moment, but I can't undersell how shocked I was by all this and the timing in particular.
Yeah. I was alerted to the news by a coworker, and I got to admit I was giving him a hard time. but I got to admit I had to do some searching to make sure it was real. Even though I trusted my coworker that he wasn't sending some crazy thing. I did some quick searching and found, all right, this is legit, but I was completely floored. I will say another college basketball coach, the timing is weird and it's bad, but I don't think there's a way to fix it because the WNBA season plays in the summer, and so just this last week.
Well, what's weird is the Indiana Fever hired their coach weeks ago, right?
Yeah. That's a good point, but that's a good point. But another college coach took a job just this last week in the W. And so, the timing's weird and I don't know how they can figure it out I don't know how, if they were counting on all these WNBA teams poaching all these college coaches, but for young, bad teams, the Sparks, who Lynn Roberts is now the coach of, were the worst team in the W last season, the season that just ended. So it kind of makes sense that if they're going toward a youth movement to hire a college coach, hire a successful college coach. So super weird, just what in the world, but kind of fun.
It's awesome for Lynn. I think one of the frustrating things is just, like I said, with the timing, I feel for just the players who now have to go through the coaching. It's just this massive distraction, everything versus had this been done before the season started. I think what irks me is the Sparks, like you said, they were the worst team. They've been eliminated from the postseason long before the WNBA finals wrapped up. So that's where we're Alyssa Peely, former Utah women's basketball player, nearly won the finals with the Lynx. So that's where I'm frustrated by the timing. I felt like this is a big hire. You have to get it right, but I feel like they could have done a lot more in the process earlier to avoid this happening at this point in the season. Also crazy that Lynn Roberts is now going to be coaching Cameron Brink, a player she went against frequently at Stanford.
I didn't even think about that, but
yeah.
Yeah.
It's another wild twist to this thing. If you look at the Utah Athletics, they made their official post about it. This comes from the Utah Athletics website, where they say that head women's basketball coach Lynn Roberts has accepted an offer to become the new head coach of the women's basketball. The WNBA's Los Angeles Sparks. Also, she's been on the job since 2015, earned Pac-12 Coach of the Year honors 22-23, and obviously led this team to the NCAA tournaments and success. And Utah assistant coach Gavin Petersen is going to he's not just the interim coach, he's taking over as the coach, Mark Harlan announced. He brings 23 seasons of college coaching experience, and he's in his 10th season as an assistant coach at Utah. He was actually even in just his 6th as the associate head coach under Roberts. So he's been here for a while. I think he's a great candidate to replace everything I've seen. That makes sense why they'd be like, yeah, this is our new head coach. Like, this isn't even interim. It's just our new head coach. I think Gavin does a great job, and I'm excited to see what he does with this group, who has a lot of returning talent, players that Lynn recruited who have been on this team. This is their 4th year now. This team can still do some things.
Yep. Yeah, as far as Gavin goes, the release mentioned it, and I wasn't totally aware, but I figured that he had been offered some head coaching jobs elsewhere in college over the years, and the release indicated that he has been, because I think he's really good. And so from that perspective, things couldn't be better for Utah. Like they a lot of programs, even the lead assistant probably isn't very good, but Utah, I think, is fortunate in that regard, that if you're Lynn, of course you have to take
for sure
take the opportunity. Yeah. Of course you have to do it. One of those once in a lifetime deals, probably. But Utah, I don't think Utah could, if they were going to lose Lynn, they're in as good of a position, I think, as they could be with Gavin taking over.
1000% agree. Excited to see what the women's team does. They had a win just yesterday, I think it was, and then obviously new head coach today, but one who's very familiar with everyone. Love the move to make him head coach, and congrats to Lynn Roberts. Had to take it, like you said. Great opportunity with the LA Sparks, and excited to see what she'll be doing. Her and Cameron Brink. Once again, just strange thinking back to those heated battles that they would have, Utah versus Stanford. Now she's coaching Cameron, so it's a wild world. So women's basketball season underway. We are winding down with football. So, senior day is Saturday. Really quick, just talk about the significance of senior day. This season's obviously been disappointing for Utah. But when you just sit back and say, this is the last home game for 20 to 25 guys, Kyle Whittingham said, the last time, and a chance to honor a group that has brought Utah a 32-19 record over the past 4 years, 2 Pac-12 titles, 2 Rose Bowl appearances, some of the most memorable, like the game against USC, the game against Oregon. Like, some of these guys were such key pieces and roles. Heck, you got Brant Kuithe going back to the 2019 Utah season and run Mekhi Bernard too, right? Like, here's just some of the players who will be honored, or at least I expect to be honored. Some of the COVID things, some of these guys may still have some time to come back, but this is the group I expect to be leaving Utah. Junior Tafuna, Van Fillinger, Zamaya Vaughn, Connor O'Toole, Aliki Vaimahi, Cole Becker, Johnny Maea, Falcon Kalmatule, Luke Batari, Charlie Vincent, Alakai Gilman, Mickey Sugataraga, Caleb Lohner, Dorian Singer, Money Parks, and of course, Mekhi Bernard, Brant Kuithe, and Cam Rising. If you're talking about a singular senior class, I feel like if we were to measure other senior classes, that's going to have some of the collection of Utah talent in this senior class will be up there with some of the best we've ever seen, Ryan.
Yeah. Can I make a joke about Cam Rising coming back?
Yes, you can.
How do we know this is Cam's lab?
Well, it's at least a senior day, right? I guess that's the one thing.
It is.
Which it was last year, I guess, too.
Yeah,
so you're not wrong.
Yeah, look, a lot of senior classes have impact players. There's no question about that. But you're right. You're right that this one is particularly big. I do want to mention, in case you weren't going to, it might have been on your radar agenda, but they're also going to be honoring Ty Jordan and Aaron Lowe because they would have been seniors. Were they different? I guess they were the same class. Yeah.
I believe they were, yes.
In any event, Utah announced that they are going to be honored in that regard, because this would have been their senior day had they been here, all of their eligibility. So that'll be I think another cool element of this senior day. But no, yeah, in terms of Cam and Brant and a bunch of those defensive guys, just huge impacts there over the past couple of years.
They have had, and I'm glad you mentioned what you said with Ty and Aaron, because that was the last thing I did want to hit at and had a note with that. And that is, I'm really happy that Utah is taking that extra step to honor those guys and those legacy. The moment of loudness has been such a big thing, and those players' losses still obviously still weigh on everyone, the impact that they both left. And that's why I'm glad that Utah has continued to celebrate the legacy and the memory that those players have left. So great opportunity to celebrate all of the seniors coming up on Saturday. One thing do want to close the show on, though, we didn't get a chance to talk about last week, is Jalen Glover decided to transfer. He's already left the Utah football program. Talk about what his departure means as we do gear up for the portal season in one moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel is your place to go, because right now you can get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And also with FanDuel, we're talking about Utah's game against Iowa State. 7.5 point line, Cyclones the favored. That's a tough one, because I could definitely see Iowa State winning by more. I think Utah's got a chance, though, to make things interesting, crazy, and get an upset here. Like, why not, right? It's the last home game, potentially Kyle Whittingham's last game. Wherever you're feeling, you can head over to FanDuel. College sports, whether football, basketball, how about NHL? Major League not Major League Baseball, basketball, pro basketball is going on, and of course NFL football. FanDuel is your place to go today. I also want to take a moment and talk to you all about another one of our sponsors here at the Locked On Network. It's Skylight Frames. Missing someone this holiday season and want them to be part of your festivities from afar? Maybe gift giving isn't your love language. You overthink it and it just winds up something disappointing, nothing at all. But if you come from a big family, it can be hard and expensive to buy each one a personal gift for the holidays. Well, we've got the perfect gift from you. At Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. Upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. It's so easy to use. Setup takes less than 60 seconds. Seamless sharing is another great feature. Invite friends and family to easily share photos via the free Skylight mobile app or email. No account or subscription required. Also, the touchscreen is a game changer. Swipe through photos, tap to see new photos sent, then tap the heart button to say thank you to the sender. And now, as the special offer, here it comes. Limited time offer for our listeners. Get $20 off your purchase at Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/college. All caps, no spaces on the college part. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/college to get $20 off your purchase. Now at skylightframe.com/college. Get the perfect gift for the holiday season today. All right, Ryan, talking about Jalen Glover. This is a departure that we probably expected based on how the season started to play out. Definitely not at the start of the year. I thought Jalen Glover was going to end up being a 4-year guy. But look, you look at his career. He had a good freshman year, 78 carries, 360 yards, 4 yards per carry, 4 touchdowns, earned a bigger role last year, 137 carries, 562 yards, 4 yards per carry, just 2 touchdowns. But this year, when it seemed like him and Mekhi Bernard would be 1A, 1B, it's been all Mekhi and very little Jalen. He only has 12 carries so far this year, 60 yards, 5 yards per carry, which is solid, but there was things about he needed to get in the coach's good graces again. Kyle said he was consistently working his way back. I'm not surprised that Jalen left. It is a massive loss for Utah. I think Jalen has potential to be really good. So it could potentially end up being one. But look, Mike Mitchell appeared to have beaten him out. I'm excited about Dejon Stanley's future. And Utah's obviously bringing in recruiting other running backs too, which Jalen, all the success. I do feel like Utah's going to be okay without Jalen. And this made sense for everyone to move on, though. But really a lot of credit to Jalen because he did accomplish a lot at Utah as a young player. And I'm glad that I do believe he will still have his eligibility for 2 more college football seasons too.
Yeah. I think you and I remember talking about Jaylen Glover with you. I think it was early in the season and just that he wasn't getting time. And I remember saying then, and I'll say it again, I almost feel like the expectations on him were really high, unfairly. And it's my hunch that they were that way because he was a Florida guy. Because he kind of had the same build as Zach Moss, kind of the same, physically, maybe reminded people a little bit of Zach Moss. I feel like a lot of people thought, well, here comes the next Zach Moss.
You're right,
and that's a really high bar to live up to. The leading rusher in school history is a really high bar to live up to. And so I'm not so sure it was as much Jalen not living up to, I could be wrong, but it feels like it wasn't so much Jalen not living up to expectations as it was maybe the expectations were unrealistic for him. And so look, it doesn't work out. That's with some people. That's why there's the portal. That's why there's competition, within rosters, so that guys like Mike Mitchell, Dejon Stanley, can supplant, people if and that's how you get the best players that you can on the field. So it is what it is. To me, I mean, we'll see a whole lot more of this in the coming weeks as guys leave, and just the same as guys will leave, Utah will be bringing in players who fans of different programs have different feelings about. So it is what, to me, it kind of is what it is on some level.
You're absolutely right. The expectations were really high that we were placed on him. And it's also just unfortunate. Obviously, whatever, we don't know what went on behind the scenes. Something happened. Him and the coaches not obviously on the greatest of terms. And unfortunate that Jalen wasn't able to finish his career here. We're thankful for the contributions he made and wish him best of luck in his next destination. Those expectations were unfair at times, and will be interesting to see what happens to his college career going forward. Ryan, always appreciate you stopping by. If people want more of your work, where can they head over to?
Hit me up, Ryan. Right as you see there at the bottom, Ryan W. McDonald on X. I still call it Twitter.
I do too.
And deseretnews.com, DESERET news.com. We got all your sports over there for you.
You're the best, Ryan. Thanks for stopping by.
Appreciate you, JT. Have a good one.
That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes. On tomorrow's show, I have some members of the media who cover Iowa State coming on with me. We don't have a Locked On Iowa State, so excited to bring on some guys to talk about the Cyclones, preview the matchup, key storylines, who's going to end up on top. That's what we're breaking down on tomorrow's Locked On Utes. Hope you'll join us then.